Is everything okay, classics? The topic with Axel Brüggemann. Well, you can hear it. This episode of Alles klar Klassik, the podcast of the Lismon Center of the Bertelsmann Stiftung, is a little different. And let me first of all welcome our German listeners. Ihr merkt schon, alles ist ein bisschen anders in dieser Ausgabe, denn wir sind mehr oder weniger live aus Gütersloh von den Masterclasses des Neue Stimmen Wettbewerbs des Lismon Centers der Bertelsmann Stiftung. Und weil diese Masterclasses wahnsinnig international sind, wechseln wir jetzt wieder ins Englische. Nächste Woche, wie gewohnt, Freitag um 15 Uhr sprechen Doro und ich wieder ganz normal auf Deutsch. Well, welcome again to this special edition of Alles klar Klassik. Neue Stimmen at Gütersloh is one of the world's leading singing competitions, and at this time we are having masterclasses. So everything in this podcast is about singing, voice development, how to create a role, how to get rid of fear and find perspectives for singers. For that we have got great interview partners. We will be talking to the singer-whisperer, the body coach John Norris. We will talk to the performance psychologist Ralph Strehle. And we will be chatting with the soprano Annette Dasch. And of course you will get to know the singers of the Neue Stimmen competition in Gütersloh. I would say, here we go. Singing always is a question of psychology as well. Ralph Strehle is a performance psychologist and helps singers to get the mind straight, to get out straight tones. On Thursday we first had a 10-kilometer run with Annette Dasch and Ralph, and afterwards I interviewed him. So in this workshop, what are you actually doing with the singers and how do they react?
They react in different ways, for sure. And that's why we have an individual approach to the artists and the artist's needs. But for me, it's important coming from a point of view of motivation. What motivates young singers today to actually sing and perform? Why would you want to stand in front of 1,000 or 2,000 people and sing? And there has to be something inside that is more than just, I want to do it. There needs to be a kind of urge, a desire to perform. And my question is always, that desire, where does it come from? And that's a question of motivation.
What is the answer they are giving? Are they conscious about the motivation, or do you have to work on their motivation with them?
I have to first of all find out what type of motivation they have. And in a, let's say, basic sense, you can be extrinsically motivated or intrinsically motivated. In fact, there are like 7 different or 6 different types of motivation, but these are the extreme ones. Externally motivated would be they perform because they want recognition, they want applause, they want to be approved. And intrinsic motivation would be they do it because that desire is lodged in something like a desire to communicate, a desire to share something, a desire to communicate, and by doing so create a community with the audience.
The dialogue, huh? This is interesting because when I did the masterclass on public relation, lots of them said, because I said, what story do you want to tell? And they told me, I sing because it's a kind of therapy for me, or I feel good when singing is my life. Yeah. And I said, it's nice for you, but why should people come and listen to your therapy? Do you have the same experience that very often singers, I mean, for them, of course, it is part of their life and it is great, but this dialogue is not really developed?
I like what you say about asking them about a story, and as a coach, I obviously listen to their stories, okay? And it's first of all, it's a story is a way to create an identity. So I need to look at them, and from a point of view of what story do they tell themselves about who they are. Working with younger singers, that story that they hold is very very attuned towards what they need in terms of technique. And I think that comes from the music conservatoires, from...
So it's perfection, it's... what are the words for that?
Well, it's I have to focus on my engine. I have to focus on this basic technique. If I don't have technique, I can't communicate. That's the story that they tell themselves. And it is then linked to this, has it be perfect? At what stage can I actually say, okay, well, I need to work on certain aspects of my technique, but now I am an artist and I have a responsibility and I take ownership over my work. And that's the point when it starts getting interesting, because in terms of motivation, we say they become integrated, in a sense that integrated motivation means they are performing because of values. They're not performing because of technique or to show technique and say, well, here's my voice, isn't it wonderful? And in my experience, having worked at higher education institutions for around about 20 years now, is that we are not allowing them to explore those values. How do you think about yourself? How, as you said early on, why communicating what you want to achieve?
What do you have to say?
Yes.
This is the first question. No? That's what I told them in public relation as well. There is no message control if you don't have a message, you know? And what I hear from you, your explanation is it that you have to open the last button of the shirt, for example, that at university they learn this perfection thing, they learn the technique, and everything turned around that, and suddenly they are on stage, and art has to happen, but art never happens just with technique?
Absolutely, particularly for them in situations where they need to show what they can do. The automatic response is to go towards technique, and they reduce themselves.
It's a safe space as well.
It's a safe space, but it's also a massive space of concern, because they've been listening to the message that they've been receiving is for 9 years. Let's face it, they do 4 years of bachelor, then 2 years of masters, then 2 years of opera school or Konzertexamen. So it's 9 years of learning.
9 years of perfection.
9 years of often just focused on technique. So when I said early on, what story do they have? What stories are they attached? The story of the self is one of, often it's linked to technique. They've been kind of conditioned to think about technique. Now, if they perform and think about technique, where's the space to make art?
And nobody in the audience goes to the opera to listen to technique. Everybody goes to the opera because they want to feel love, they want to feel hatred, they want to feel tears, they want to laugh. Nothing of that has the name technique. Technique is just the necessity to create feelings, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's in the service of art. It's every other art form. You have to have a basic toolkit. But I can't wait as an artist for this toolkit to be complete and have 160 tools in there and strategies that help me to cope on a stage. So that point where you have to say, okay, all right, I'm accepting that there are certain things that I have to work on, because every job in the world is continuous learning, but the base product that I have is good enough that I do not have to worry about technique. And I suppose what we experience, when they when they are on stage and technique prevents them from communicating, it prevents them from actually getting something like a flow experience of being free and to improvise, to not just follow a plan, but to improvise creatively.
I like this picture of the toolkit as well. If you have a toolkit, at one point you have to start building a house, because it's not, it doesn't make sense to just, it's a nice screwdriver I'm having here, I could do this and this with it, and this hammer, this is really good. But if you don't build the house, I mean, yesterday at dinner, last question, you told one story as well, that you listen to the recordings or to videos with the singers and ask them to judge on themselves. What happens if you do so?
Well, inevitably, I have to listen or watch a performance video 3 times. First time is always I ask them to comment as they watch themselves. And
whatever they want to say.
Whatever they want to say, inevitably, it tends to be negative. So they are geared towards, and that's coming back to what you said about perfectionism, to identifying weaknesses and identifying things that don't work. And again, I think it's a Western concept that we are conditioned to look for the things that are not working. So in the second time we're watching it, I asked them to simply identify what they enjoy about their performance, because that's what we need. We need to enjoy what we're doing. And they find that very difficult.
It is funny, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Because they say, I'm living for opera, but they can't see what they actually enjoy doing it.
It's geared towards identifying what's not working, and that's perfectionism. I think this is probably the biggest threat to being creative is perfectionism, and by perfectionism I mean a maladaptive perfectionism, which is linked to some ideal form of, here's the ideal singer, and I measure myself, and I consistently and always fall short of that ideal. It's unreachable. There's an adaptive perfectionism, which is I have to prepare, I have to know my stuff, I have to have my arias translated, I have to know what other singers are saying in that language. So this preparation, this desire, the context, that can be linked to perfectionism. I have no problem with that. I do a game with them which is called Headquarters. So I asked them for the first name, so mine would be Ralph's Headquarters, and I showed them a picture of a headquarter, a big table, and I asked them who's sitting on that table. Inevitably, we say there's Mr. or Mrs. Failure, there's a driver, so you get like those sub-personalities. And I asked them, how do they communicate with each other? And who's actually chairing this?
It's Mr. Fun sitting there as well.
Absolutely. It's where's the child, the inner child who wants to have fun and so on? That's very important. And, it's then balancing that. I will never get rid of the Mr. Failure, but because it's a part of our...
He's important as well.
Absolutely. And he's part of our psychological makeup, That's basically the threat system. It's the protection system. Somebody says, you won't succeed. It's an unhelpful way of motivating somebody, because we get an ego response where they say, no, I can do it. Yes. All right?
I think we have got lots of ideas now. Get your headquarters straight, and discover the fun of it. Huh?
Yeah, absolutely. Diffuse and find humor as a beautiful strategy for just making those things that actually don't exist. There is no perfectionism in the world. It doesn't exist. It's a linguistic construct, okay? It's rules and regulations that we have internalized, and we start believing in it, and we think they're actually true. No, they're not. They're not.
Take that, singers out there. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This singing coach, Ralph Strehle. Responsible for the vocal work with the singers at Neue Stimmen Masterclasses was the soprano Annette Dasch. She is one of the greatest German voices. We all remember her legendary Elsa in Lohengrin at the Bayreuth Festival. Annette Dasch sings in all great opera houses in the whole world, and she enjoys sharing her experience with young singers. I wanted to know from her what was different in her career compared to the careers of the students she meets in Gütersloh.
I have to say that actually when I was young, I started very young my career. So actually while I was still a student. So I never, and now they are at a stage where they have, most of them have finished university, and now they are looking to get what they need. So I never entered that stage. I started my career immediately, and that was, sometimes I miss this. I think I must have, it would have been easier for me to get just more input, because then I felt what I did was I shut down.
You had to learn and practice, and
I had to learn to practice, and I had to, my thing was, I don't want to hear anything about my technique. I don't want to listen to anybody criticizing me, because I was 23.
Yes.
And so I think they are incredibly open, very open. And I had to learn that along the way, but also to decide who to listen to,
This is important, isn't it?
Very important, because everybody thinks, it's like with football. Everybody thinks they know what's best for you.
The whole world of opera is vocal coaches.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So who was it you listened to?
Well, I listened to my teacher, and then I listened to, I learned a lot from the good conductors that I worked with. I learned very much from Nicolas Harnoncourt, René Jacobs. I learned a lot from Fabio Luisi, because he had this Italian but also German thing going on. I worked a lot with him when I was young, and I really learned a lot from him. Yeah. So, and then there comes one pianist. He comes and plays for a stage rehearsal, and you think, oh, this is something that I hear. And then he says something, or he looks at you in a special way, and you ask, could we make a coaching together? And then this is. But it's.
And again, it's
diffuse.
to find the right people.
To find the right piece, and sometimes it's just luck. It's just luck.
Is there something with young singers where you say, this is a mistake, or this is something they are struggling with, which is so, like, for everybody the same problem, or is it always individual?
I think that this younger generation, they struggle much less than we did with a lot of issues, because they are much more open and much more connected. Okay. The world is much smaller now. And I mean, when you talk to them, they go like, yeah, I've worked with her and her and her in New York, so and
they
here
can grab
and here.
Whoever they want.
So they are much more international, much more open, I think. So that's a good thing. I think the challenges for them is there are just much more singers now than there used to be when I started.
Less jobs.
Less jobs, many more singers from all over the world, and fit for the job. So I don't know. No.
It has been a topic for all of you coaches, the step from university and learning to really the stage. We heard that very often. At university, very often it's about technique, it's about perfection, whatever that may be. And suddenly on stage you have to do art. Do you find that as well, that it is a big step to go from this education thing to the real stage thing?
I think that depends on the student. I think that the universities, actually, some of them, they have this, they are offering much more than, but also from my experience when I was a student, I was actually the only one to take acting class serious. Okay. I was the only one to take Musikgeschichte seriously. And all my colleagues, they were all about like sitting in the canteen, not all of them, I'm a bit exaggerating, but sitting in the canteen at lunch saying, oh, I just sang La Traviata Zaria. I must say, I found I was pretty good.
Is that so?
Yeah.
Really?
This is, I mean, and of course, I encourage that, because students, they need, if you want to do this job, you need self-love, and you need to be convinced that you are special. But for my taste and for my kind of moral compass, I would want for them to feel special, also because they read a couple of books, and also because they have very precise opinions about Schiller, about Shakespeare, about Bartok, about the time, where the period when the pieces were written, and about why do they think they want to play Wozzeck, Today. Yeah. And why do they maybe have, or should we have a problem with impersonating Lulu, for example? And these topics like political, let's say society topics, I think sometimes that these singers, they choose this job because they live in kind of this opera bubble that is not real.
And not connected to what is out there, not connected to the world of the audience, for example. Yes. That's what you said yesterday at dinner. You said, there are little tricks I'm using while I'm doing the masterclass. Now we are revealing them. And say, I don't know this role, but what are you actually singing there? And how do people react? Differently. I mean, there are actually some people who cannot say, who don't know when Rossini wrote a piece. I mean, I don't need the exact date of the year, but what happened is
what happened, and do they know when Rossini lived? Was it the 19th or the 18th or the 20th century? I'm not sure if everybody knows that. And I think this knowledge and this, because that's also fun. This is fun knowledge
Yeah.
to really
somebody
connect.
like Anancourt who really enthusiasts you about that.
Of course. And actually all the good artists that you work with. I mean, I know no conductor or director who just gives a shit about these kind of things.
And you see as well that it is a normality of life. It has been. I think Anancourt always said, whenever people laugh in Mozart operas, they are yodeling.
It's
and
true.
Mozart listened to this yodeling in his Salzburg's farms. You know,
Yeah.
it's farm music from Austria. That's when they are happy. So
It's
it's this connection to reality as well.
Exactly.
To bring that to the people. Last question. You said that already. The market is different than when you started. Lots of singers coming out of the universities. Less and less and smaller ensembles. What do you tell them? Do they have to plan careers differently? Do they have to be more engaged in finding own programs? Or do they have to struggle and fight for these few little jobs in opera houses?
Actually, I don't know. I think this is a question for you to answer because I have no idea of how this business actually works. The only thing that I can say is it helps to be liked and to be likable. But on the other hand, I would never suggest that everybody makes themselves, always cheerful.
But you develop your own formats as well. You have the Dasch salon.
Yes, of course.
You talk about classical music with
It's
people
true.
out of other contexts. I mean, you invented formats where you could perform.
Yeah, that's true. But on the other hand, there is also, like when people ask me, could you come and sing a recital? And I make this exquisite program where I find a connection between Hans Eisler and I don't know. And people say, I'm sorry.
I'm out.
Can you please do Schubert and Schumann? Because otherwise we won't have any audience. And that's, so I don't know. Of course, I like to encourage people to look for the niche, for the little corners of the repertoire, find a way to Lily Boulanger, but look at the Scandinavian lead repertoire, which is huge, but not so many people here know it. So, but then on the other hand, I think, I don't know if it's maybe a waste of time. I mean, for themselves, it's definitely not, but for the business, I don't know. And you said something very smart. Do you have this time to say this?
Yes, of course.
Because you said...
When I said something smart, you can always
Yeah. You said the business is changing.
Yeah.
And everything is changing. The only thing that hasn't changed is how the business is run. Because we still have this kind of monarchy in a theater where there's just one decider. One person decides. And this is...
And can act without borders.
Without borders and without having to justify.
That's what I always say. The Deutsche Bank, which is a DAX concern, has better compliance rules than an opera house.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's true.
So we can't discuss morality on stage if we don't have moral standards behind stage.
Exactly. And it's not even just moral. It's just how is it possible that we are only employed here and there and there and there, and then if nobody employs me anymore, there's no safety net. There's just no safety net, and nobody is in charge. Nobody is responsible for that. And I think this for women who have 2 children or 3 children, they are employed in Dessau. Comes a new intendant, fires her. Nobody, and now
or the freelancing.
All the freelancers. Now, what is she supposed to do? Yeah. She is 43. Yeah. She has children that are in school. She has to move to another city. She has to audition at that age, and there the system really fails, and nothing has changed with that. I'm sorry to say.
I think there is awareness about that, but it is especially with the mothers and perhaps the fathers, and it hasn't arrived at the institutions. But this is so important that we bring that to the institution as well. Yeah.
That we educate the leaders.
Yes.
Better.
Or find better leaders.
Find better leaders. Educate them. Yeah.
It's all about Lohengrin. Thank you, Annette Dasch. Thank you.
Thank you.
The wonderful Annette Dasch. You can listen to the complete interview on my YouTube channel, Axel Brüggemann, or on the YouTube channel of the Stimmen competition. Of course, I was chatting with lots of the singers here in Gütersloh as well, and now you can hear one of my talks with the mezzo-soprano Alexandra Urquiola from the United States and the baritone William Desbiens from Canada. First of all, I wanted to know, how did they get in contact with the world of opera?
When I was 8 years old, I was very dramatic as a child, and my mom's a therapist, and she said immediately, we need an outlet for this energy. And so she put me in a summer camp, and from that summer camp they said she should sing at the Metropolitan Opera. And so I auditioned for the Metropolitan Opera for their children's course.
It could be smaller.
Yeah, it could have been smaller, but they went big, you know? And so I auditioned for the Metropolitan Opera children's chorus. And my first experiences with opera were on the main stage there. And I remember being in Carmen and singing the children's chorus, Avec le cas du monde, right? And we finished, and
on stage.
On stage.
And you were 8 years old at that time?
8 years old.
Okay.
And we charged towards the audience in the Zeffirelli production. And all of a sudden, we stopped singing, and the whole audience started clapping. And I looked out into the seats, and I saw everyone smiling back at me, and I thought, wow, I have the power to make a lot of people happy. I want to do this forever. And you know, that's morphed over the past.
So it's a 20-year psychology.
Exactly.
Free psychology exam.
Yes,
yeah, okay.
Exactly. And that over the past 20 years has developed into, I can allow people, by being this vessel for something much greater than I am, to feel things way beyond our control, way beyond our power. More than happiness, I can make them feel emotions that go beyond words, and you can only feel through the music. And I think that that's a kind of superpower that us as artists have, that I can transcend.
Should be a Marvel hero.
Yes.
The opera singer with a superpower. This would be cool.
That's right.
Hey, Disney, think about that.
Captain Opera.
Yeah, Captain Opera. Cool. Yeah, very good. Very good. Yeah, opera woman. Yeah, good. It's good. So it was basically the initial moment. It was yourself being on stage.
Yes,
so,
that's right.
Okay. How was it with you?
Well, for the role model,
Yes.
my father was an opera singer.
Okay.
So he always sang in the house from, I would say, ever since I was born. He would go away a lot to try and work. And in the end,
He was freelance as well?
He's tried.
So you were,
Yes, he tried.
Grew up in Canada, and when your father was home, he was singing.
Yeah. Sometimes he would go. He went to Sarasota. Mm-hmm. But in the end, you know, family life is very difficult, and it's a very difficult profession. So he's decided to quit singing, but he never stopped singing. So I kept hearing him throughout my life, and I hated it. I hated him practicing, because there's nothing worse than someone practicing the same phrase 700 times, and you're very young, so you catch it quickly. He doesn't. It takes him a little bit longer. So you got the phrase after the third one, but he's going again and again. Also, you don't understand that he's working on technique, he's working on phrasing. You just understand notes and words, and you think it's easy. Why you keep repeating?
Okay, take me with you. Your father quit because of family life, because of private situations, and then you said, I want to become an opera singer. What did he say then?
Well, when people would ask me when I was young, would you ever want to be an opera singer like your father? I would always say, who would want to do a job that doesn't pay, that doesn't have financial security? And that's age 9,
Wow.
8. So it couldn't be more different than you, Alexandra. So, and I thought the same when you were talking. So, no, in the end, I was forced into taking 1 year. I think I was probably 16 or 17 at the time, of music in high school.
Forced by your parents?
No, forced by the
school.
school, because they stopped giving us drama.
Okay.
Because we were too rowdy. So
So psychology as well.
There's
yeah,
a theme here.
Okay, there we see that opera singers are not the most easy people. Okay.
yeah, we were
Okay.
the whole
okay.
group was too rowdy.
Okay.
So then I chose music because I told myself, well, my father has a conservatory, education. If I need help, he will help me, and I will get good grades, and then I'll be able to go in further studies. They gave me a tuba. After 3 days, I said, no, I don't think I can do this. So how about singing? So I knew I had a good ear, and a good feeling, but I never really sang, never really, I sang for fun.
Right.
I did voices. But then I asked, could we sing? Could we have a voice teacher? And they didn't have one at the time, but they hired one. And
Your father?
No. No. Actually, the daughter-in-law of the principal at the time. She was a singer and teacher. And
Don't go into details.
no, that's all. And yeah, they gave me Caro mio ben. They gave me Schubert's Ave Maria, and I was hooked instantly. It was not so much at first the music I couldn't understand by listening, but once I did it and sang it, and then I learned how to appreciate it, that I didn't want to do anything else. And to come back to your question, how did he react to this? He told me, William, you know how difficult this is. You know it's a very difficult job. You've seen me. Are you sure this is what you want to do? And I said, I couldn't be more sure. And he said, okay, I'll help you.
How is that? If you know that you enter this opera market, and especially if you are based in New York, 2 weeks ago in our podcast we had Peter Gerben who said, well, we slept for 50 years and now we have the result that nobody is really hooked to what we call opera. Il Trovatore is sold out 1/3. So we have to find a new audience. We have to develop a new repertoire. We really are an art in crisis, he said. And now you want to enter this art in crisis. And William, you have said it already. You saw that with your father. It's not a paying off profession, at least not in the beginning, and for probably 85% of people who are in opera business. Are you sometimes, Alexandra, afraid as well?
That's a great question. I think that if you care, you have fear. If you care, there's something to lose. There's something to gain, obviously, but there's something to lose. And, you see someone like Peter Gerben, who you were speaking of, and how the Met has transformed their season. They've decided to only start with contemporary works because they see that it's packing the houses. They've started to...
They're doing Dead Man Walking now.
Dead Man Walking, a fabulous opera. Jake Heggie. I'm okay, thank you.
You want some water?
I'm all right, thank you. Doing Dead Man Walking, for example, going to Sing Sing, reaching out to the prisoners, and
exactly that's what he said as well, that they go into
this kind of
death row
outreach
prisons.
is critical for showing people that opera isn't just an elite thing, and also now they're starting to reflect the society that they serve. You see how they've done now 2 operas by Terence Blanchard. Right? They just did Fire Shut Up in My Bones last year. Charles Blow is a New York Times bestseller. So you have someone in the city, a representative of the city. You have the Black community, which is huge in the United States, and now they're doing Malcolm X as well. I mean, they're really trying to serve their community.
And you have your fellow countryman Nézet Séguin, who kind of approaches to a complete different kind of group as well, with this outgoing and outreaching character. But the question again, Alexandra, what are your fears? If you say, I care, of course I fear. Can you describe it? Is it not to earn money with it? Is it not to be good enough? Is it what kind of fear is it, and how do you overcome it?
Great question.
Again,
great question. Yes,
such a good interview.
You
Unbelievable.
I would say that as young artists, we have this insurmountable pressure of we want to play these iconic roles. For example, I told the story that I sang Carmen in the children's chorus when I was 8 years old. This year now, 20 years later, I sang my first Carmen. And
What did you say to the children?
What did I say to the children?
In the choir.
In the choir.
Did you tell them your story?
Oh, absolutely. Are you kidding?
Because it's encouraging for them, isn't it?
Yes, of course. I think, just follow your dreams is the overwhelming arch of it all. But I think that because we have these insurmountable characters, these these icons that are larger than life. And then you have the greats of opera history that we can look back on, especially in this age of recording, and we could say, ah, yes, Maria Callas sang Carmen, Agnes Balza sang Carmen, all of these amazing, you have recordings of Jesse Norman singing the Seguidilla, and then there's little old me. And how do I compare, how do I find my voice within centuries of tradition? And I think that can be quite daunting and quite exciting. And it's about reframing your mindset and saying, I can be my own Carmen. I can be Alexandra within this story. And isn't that so incredible that I bring to it something that nobody has ever brought to it before, based on the fact that, my parents are Cuban refugees and I grew up in the United States, and who better knows an habanera than, someone with roots from Havana,
Just the people with roots from Spain.
Yes, that's right.
But probably they came to Cuba from Spain.
Poured it again.
William, how about you? Do you know fear as well?
Well, I think any other singers I've talked to, I think we all have this, unless they have incredible mental strengthness. I think we all sometimes have this vertigo, this fear. We all start feeling, oh, this is difficult, we're scared of. My fears would be, I would be scared of not making enough money, which is, what my father had to deal with. Not being good enough is also one. And for me especially, not being able to touch the public as I want to do. So for example, we always want more. I was given a small role last season, 2 small roles in Der Liebe zu den drei Orangen by Prokofiev, Farfarello and Pantalone, which they're good enough, but they were small roles, and I was very happy to have them.
What houses are we talking about?
In Heidelberg.
In Heidelberg, nice one.
And I was very happy, and they were splendid.
With Elias Grandi, isn't it?
Yeah, it was Elias Grandi. Yeah, absolutely. And so, I was 11 shows, and they were quite small roles, but they were quite demanding, but I was very happy. But I told myself at some point, I wish it was a bigger role. And now this season, I'm doing Figaro in Barbieri di Siviglia in Heidelberg.
Which is a bigger role.
Which is a bigger role, but then it comes with other fears, Now you are under the microscope, and that's what you've always wanted, but now there's pressure, even more pressure, it comes with all its challenges, which I really like. It's okay to be afraid. It's okay. I think it makes us human and reasonable.
So people out there, you know what to do? Go to the opera now. Thank you too.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Alexandra and William. He is called the singer's whisperer. He knows everything about the connection between mind and body and how the perfect tone can leave your lips. John Norris is body coach, and he is working in all opera studios worldwide. Of course, he gave masterclasses in Gütersloh at the Stimmen Masterclasses as well. I met John and asked him, what is the first thing you're looking for when a new singer enters the room?
I think I'm looking for a way for their performance to be authentic, and that their concentration is not fixed, And then I'm looking at the whole person, like not just their body, but how they think. And then I'm looking to find ways for it to become simpler or easier for them to express themselves, I think, is what I'm doing.
So could one say that the body, for some singers, is in the way? That the body is a hurdle for emotion?
Yeah, it can be. And the thing is sometimes if I'm concentrating so much on the notes, I forget the body. And then if there's no body under the sound, then the throat starts to take over, and then there's like squeezing, and that's not very healthy. And so it's like kind of finding a balance of like, I need a certain amount of awareness when I'm singing to stay in my body and to recognize things that I do with my body that make me feel uncomfortable.
Why is it so difficult to be yourself on stage? Why is it so difficult to be normal? Why is it so difficult to be relaxed?
I think there's an expectation of performance. And so everybody has a little bit of a, what's it called, like a Selbstwertgefühl, that I'm not good enough. And part of being an artist is working through that, and part of, through experience, you learn, okay, well, I can actually go here, and I'm here. But usually there's this tension, there's so many demands on me. The conductor wants this, the director wants this, and my voice doesn't feel 100%. And then there's the
audience is there.
And the audience is there, and then what do I do? And so I feel like there's a pressure to deliver something. And I feel like that has to be, it's true, there is an expectation, but that has to be tempered with something that helps the singer feel empowered or inspired. Or
is it a question of hen and egg? What is first? Is it first the thoughts that define the body, or is it the body that defines the thoughts?
Okay, this is a great question because it's both. So if you use your body in a certain way, it makes your mind clear. We know that from running or doing yoga, that sometimes the body affects the mind, but also if I'm having a ton of thoughts of oh my God, I don't know my music well enough, and this isn't right, and I'm afraid of this, and oh my God, and now my shoulders are coming up, and then it's so the brain is having a huge influence on the body. So it's both. And then with each person, we have to find what triggers help them the most with their particular problem.
Are there rules which work generally for everybody, or is all that so individual that you really have to work with these very persons to know their story, to know their body? Or are there 2, 3, 4 things you can say before you sing, just jump or something like that?
Yeah. Oh, look, I think there's probably some general things that we could say that help everybody. And one is a sense of strength when one stands. We all grow up and we get this false idea that locking my hips and locking my legs and locking my arms makes me feel strong. And the brain is used to this signal, oh, this is strong. But then if you go and you push somebody like that, they fall over. And so just by having your feet on the floor, your knees are a little bit relaxed, that gives you more access to the floor and being grounded. And I think in general, that's something that we could say everybody could use a little bit of that.
And the rest then is really individual, because people come with their lives, with their family businesses, with their
beliefs of what they're supposed to be doing when they're singing. And singers have a tendency to overdo anyway what people say. And so sometimes you'll notice somebody is over pushing the breath because they think they're supposed to help the breath out. And then you can point out to them, well, maybe you don't need to do that so much. And then oh yeah, but this is what I learned. And then you're up against their belief system. And so it's a gradual process of, I think for the kids I work with, they have to develop their own vocal technique. They've maybe been with a teacher for 10 years, but now that they're in the profession, they have to learn how to keep themselves together.
In this podcast, we have been talking to some of the singers, and we have been talking to some of the masters with the masterclasses. And one topic was on both sides. It was the step from the academy, from the universities, to the real stage. Because at university, you really learn this kind of perfection technique thing, and art happens on stage. Do you feel that as well, that you have to free yourself to become an artist and not a good vocal technician?
I think there's some truth in that. And I also think that there's a lot of very bad teaching going on, and people get really focused on the product and what they hear and not on the function of the voice. And so I think some people come out of school and they think they're prepared technically, and they're not really as prepared as they think they are.
What is it? What is the problem? What went wrong?
I think something goes wrong in the... there's something about singing that's counterintuitive. And so if I'm thinking, okay, I want to project my voice across the room, if I give more direction, it'll be louder. But actually, if you're on your body and you're singing, usually there's a feeling of some kind of stretching within that actually makes the voice more free. And And so your question was about artistry. And I think when you go from a university setting, there's a lot of standards, like you need to learn this much music and this style, and this is the style, and what's important is the style is right. And if you're hurting your voice is not so bad. And I think this is a problem. And so then when kids come out of college or out of a university into an opera studio, they have a lot to learn. You know, plus they have to sit around and wait all day while they get a part in an opera where they sing 2 measures and they sit in the rehearsal for 8 hours a day.
Yeah. Which makes something with the body as well.
Yeah, like how do I be ready when I've been, doing nothing? And so they need to learn, like they have to somehow keep their attention going, and they have
It's more difficult to be ready for 2 bars than for the whole Liebestod of Isolde.
Yeah, exactly. Because once you get in it and you're in it, then you're in it. But
what is your goal? Is it to find your own balance between body, brain, and voice, or is it to find the character's body with your brain and voice?
Well, that's kind of a good question. I think they're both true. I feel like for some singers, if they find the character and they lose a certain kind of self-awareness, a negative one, being a character actually helps them sing better, or helps them be more in the moment, or helps them be free.
It changes the voice as well, isn't it? However,
voice is really interesting because it really does follow our Absicht, our intention. Yeah.
So if I move like Don Giovanni, it's more probable that I can sing like Don Giovanni?
I don't think it's that simple. I think it's like if I find some part of myself that helps me merge into the character of Don Giovanni, and when I'm singing, I lose a certain self-criticism because I'm so busy being the character, then maybe it's really helping the singer be in the moment and not thinking, now comes the hard part in 2 measures. And I think that's part of the artistry part we're talking about, is like getting in the moment.
That's what we heard in the psychological part as well. The self-critic is very often in the way. We heard that yesterday at the bar as well, that if singers listen to themselves, they first of all hear all the mistakes they are doing instead of listening to the parts where they are good. Is that something you aim for as well, to for the moment of performance lose the self-critic?
Yeah, so look, it's sometimes, I mean, I've been doing this for so many years, I just sometimes see things really fast. But like if a singer is singing and you see their eyes kind of moving over here and their focus like away from themselves, I recognize they're listening to themselves. And actually, if I'm listening to myself, I'm behind. Mentally, I'm behind the moment. And so I have no control anymore. So, and again, a singer has to listen to make sure they're in tune. Like there has to be some kind of balance.
If you sit on your own shoulder at the same time singing, then you are 2.
Yeah, then you're not in the moment. And so I think that's where it's very individual. Certain people have little triggers that they can go into, and it helps them be free. And I don't think it's a general thing. I think it's like each person finds their own way, or like I have a friend who did an audition and she's really experienced and she screwed it up. And the next day she's like, I'm not going to screw this up. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to nail this motherfucker. And she did. Yeah. And so sometimes it's just a matter of mental preparation and mental trust, or mental, your willpower and your goal get aligned and you achieve what you want.
You've been doing that for some 5 years now, 10 years, 20, 30, 35. Do you think that the singers and the way they come to you have changed, or do the young singers cope with the same problems the young singers cope with 15 years ago?
I would say in some ways, yes. It's the same. And in other ways, I notice in Germany that there's a tending, the singers are getting younger and younger, that they want to get singers really young in a house and get them in a fest contract before they're 25 or 30. And so I feel like nowadays in the opera studios, there's a lot of super talented kids, but they're just younger, or they have less experience than the people maybe of, 15 years ago.
Which means we have to give them more time?
I think so. And I feel like this is something that we're losing in the profession. I remember when I lived in Munich in the 80s, I went to see Marriage of Figaro, Wieder Aufnahme. It was a Renner production. It was Colin Davis conducting, and all of these really seasoned, Herman Pry was the Figaro, Margaret Price was the Countess, Alan Titus was...
Very an opera all-star team,
It was like the all-star team, but they were all from Hoyte You think these people would never get cast in that because no one thinks it's right. But when you see these artists that are like in their 40s and 50s and convincing you that they can still be Susanna and Figaro, there's something about that I think our profession is losing.
Okay. My last question is there a singer where you say, under the perspective I'm looking on singers professionally, this is the role model for everybody?
Oh, God. That's a tricky question. If I can think of one singer... Okay, Emily D'Angelo comes to my mind a little bit, but I don't really think like that. But she comes to my mind because she's someone who can be very expressive and she knows her voice really well, and she doesn't push generally.
So it's all quite easy, actually. Why do we make a fuss about it?
Well, I think it's easy and it's not. It's like it's very weird. But I also feel like, when speaking about Emily, she's had the same teacher since she was 18, and she lucked out and didn't have 17 teachers and have to unlearn something. And so she has, for her age and everything, she has a very solid technique, and she's good on stage, and somehow it works,
Thank you very much for giving us all these insights. And what you do with it, you have to see for yourself. But I think there were lots of interesting points to look on yourself. Thank you very much. Thank you. This was the one and only John Norris. And I would suggest that for the last interview, we go back to the young singers at Stimmen Masterclasses in Gütersloh. I have been talking to the countertenor from the Netherlands, Gerben van der Werf, and to the soprano from the United Kingdom, Stephanie Hershaw. And here it is, our little chat. So now you are in Gütersloh. Obviously, you are at the beginning of the career of an opera singer. Why do you have to become an opera singer? Why do you want to participate and earn money in a dying art?
Well, that's a really good question.
I'm known for my good questions.
Yeah, it's a very good one. For me, opera is when I'm singing opera, it's a total full body experience. And I remember when I went to see my first opera, it moved me in a way that no other art form has done before. It was Turandot.
Turandot, it's the first opera.
Royal
Wow,
Opera
it's heavy
House.
stuff.
Yeah, I know, starting at the top. And I think it was Lisa Lindstrom who sang Turandot. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, the sound of her voice. How does she communicate her emotion to a huge amphitheatre, a huge house, and send her voice right to the back of the, I was up in the heavens. And from that moment on, I thought, wow, this is a really cool art form. Yeah.
How was it with you?
So for me, I never had this dream of becoming an opera singer. I sang as a boy chorister, and I don't want to say by accident, but sort of by accident.
Slided into it.
Yeah, I kind of was lured into I kind of was drawn to it, maybe attracted by it. I started in university, I studied chemistry and physics, and then, got a side job in a chorus, and through there I kind of realized maybe I should take it a little bit more seriously. And step by step, I kind of felt that I was going to move in this direction. I mean, it does help. We just had the masterclass, and I sat as a listener to Duchois singing La Calunia, and I felt like I had a front row seat in the house. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's very privileged position somehow, but it's also something beautiful in the sense that there was the Dutch singer Afje Heines, and she said that she's a priest in her craft, and I think this sort of self-sacrifice.
We had that yesterday already, huh? The religion aspect of opera, this kind of spiritual experience, probably.
Yeah.
But Do you agree that the world of classical music basically is in a big change? I mean, of course, at Royal Opera House it works, at Vienna State Opera it works, at Berlin State Opera it works. But if you go in theaters in Germany, from the north to little town of Bremerhaven or to Dresden even, it doesn't really work. There are not many people. We have lots of kind of changing questions in this art. Do you think you will be hit by it, or don't you even think about this changing working place of classical music?
Well, I think we've already been hit by it. I think when I started my undergraduate, I had a different expectation of what would happen when I leave music college compared to now, especially in the UK. They're saying, you know, when you leave and you do your undergraduate, postgraduate, possibly an opera school, and then you go to Germany because that's where all the work is. So it's a very different situation in the UK. But I think it's our mission, and especially my mission, to make opera more accessible, to visit schools, local schools, and maybe singing in the not the original language, but singing in English in the UK, to make it more accessible.
Unfortunately, there as well, English National Opera did it, but it's going to close.
Well, this is the problem as well. Yes, but I think in the UK there's not enough support from the government to fund the arts, whereas in Germany it's a different situation. So yeah, it's a very interesting topic.
But Stephanie, if you say the expectations and the dream or the imagination of what happened after the studies did not match what happened, what was the difference? What did you imagine and what was different?
Well, I think I speak to my professor. I spoke a lot to my professors when I was studying at the Royal College of Music and the Royal Welsh College where I did my undergrad, and they all said, you know, they left and they were thrown into English National Opera, or they went to Aix-en-Provence, or they sang in Covent Garden. It's a different world. They also started their careers at 23 rather than late 20s or 30s or whatever. So it's just it's a completely different world now. I don't have any regrets, but I guess if I'd been told at 18 it's going to be very, very difficult to find work, and you know, perhaps I would have changed my mind in certain aspects.
So for me, it's not really, how to say, because I made the choice because I had a very good career path, you know, spread out for me, because I could go into pharma, I could go into consulting, I could like make a ton load of money.
You still can.
I still can, but I just made it very.
But not as a singer.
I made it much more difficult for myself as a singer, let's say. So I was never in it for the money, and I knew it was going to be difficult, and I don't regret it. And
but
I also
do you
feel,
see something different than what you expected? Like the real opera life, is it different than the dreamt of opera life?
So I never dreamt of an opera life anyway.
Okay.
But I did go to Verona, and I saw what was going on there. I still love like 19th century Italian opera, and I will never sing any of that probably. So it's hard. Maybe I'll become a conductor one day just to do it.
Okay.
So I see myself also not necessarily as a singer solely. I just found myself as a singer, and I devote myself fully to it. But should I become something else in a number of years because I have to, or because I want to have this freedom of choice, let's say. But yes, the market is oversaturated. There is not as much demand maybe as there used to be. On the other hand, I mean, these are just numbers and they're very important, but I feel that we need to reinvent ourselves. And like you said earlier, Stephanie, when you do it, you feel very much alive. So something about it is not dead.
What is it you would like to reinvent, Gerben?
I think that we need to reinvent what we can do for the society, and sometimes I see in trying to reinvent that we try to throw everything out that we can and try to present a different us, and I don't think that's the way. I think the art form in itself has a lot of merit, and so we reinvent the classics in every age, and that's why it's a classic. This is I think
it always happened, you know.
Well, exactly.
The reinvention is,
but also the narrative of it being in demise has, I think, always been around. So I'm not so afraid it's going to die out. It might change, you know, in quantity, but I think it should remain in quality, and we should reinvent it to our time. And I mean, there's lots of interesting things happening with singers bringing it to the public, singers bringing it to social media, and everybody does it in a different way. We talked about this yesterday.
I also don't think it's going to die out necessarily.
So are you afraid sometimes then?
I am a little bit.
I'm also
I would be afraid.
Yeah.
I mean, I would be afraid. I am afraid,
Yes.
even as a journalist, because you know.
But I think
see-
what's really great actually is like the under 30 schemes or under 35s. The Garsington Opera have this, and Royal Opera House and various opera houses to make it more accessible. I also think teachers in schools are so vital. I had the most amazing music teacher at I went to the Abbey School in Reading, and he introduced me to Montserrat Caballé or Pavarotti and got me into this world of opera because my family aren't musical at all, and that was a huge thing for me. So I think making it accessible, teaching people about it, or actually just taking someone to go to the opera, just sit there and experience it. And if it's not your thing, then you can leave and think, okay, maybe I prefer musical theatre or something different. But you might really be surprised and actually think, wow, this is an incredible experience, because it is a whole experience, isn't it? You have the orchestra and the set and the costumes and the lighting, and it's not just about the singing. It's an art form that has everything. There's also dancing.
Exactly.
It's a spectacle.
Yeah.
And there are no microphones, and it's incredible to hear opera
Well, they're
singers
well
who
hidden
are,
at least. Yeah.
Sometimes hidden. Yeah, but we don't need to talk about that.
But I think it was you yesterday who said that when we tried to find headlines for your life as an opera singer, I think it was you as well, Stephanie, who said, "I want to open opera for everybody," or something like that. Somebody said it. I don't know.
Yeah.
How is your experience in your private lives with friends at school, like not in this opera bubble, but outside the bubble? Do you think people still say, wow, she wants to become opera singer, he wants to become opera singer, that is cool? I think this is what happened 15 years ago, like with journalists. If I tell people nowadays I'm a journalist, oh, okay, do you earn money actually? The prestige of the job, do you think it's still there, or did that change as well?
I think it is still there. I think whenever I say, if someone asks me, what do you do as a career? And then I say, well, I'm an opera singer, or at least trying to be. And they think, oh, wow, they say something that's amazing. And the classic line is, sing something. Sing something for us.
Yeah, sing something.
Actually quite frustrating, because I guess you wouldn't ask an accountant to do some
Do some
equations or
accounting.
something,
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to find an equivalent, or a
Calculate
doctor.
something for us. Could
Actually,
you
a
please
tenor friend of mine just did it,
Yeah.
and it was amazing.
Yeah, you know what? Sometimes you just have to own it. It depends on the situation.
I
isn't
don't,
it?
but still.
But it is difficult, and I've had so much of my life so far. I get in a taxi and they say, "What do you do?" I'm not saying, "Oh, you're like Catherine Jenkins," or "You're a recording artist." And Catherine Jenkins is great, but she's not an opera singer, so I have to kind of explain what an opera singer is and what it involves, and people aren't educated in the same way. But I think it's different in Germany. I think it is.
No. I think my neighbours think it's pretty cool, and I'm lucky because
he better does.
when we moved, I didn't know how quickly I should go to the doorbell and say, listen, if you hear something, it might be me.
Yeah.
I had neighbours come up to me and say, is your girlfriend in a choir or something, because we hear somebody singing? And as a countertenor, that's pretty funny.
And
but
you
then,
said, no, I am my girlfriend.
No, this is me.
Yeah, I am my girlfriend.
But I think there is, in a way, it's good maybe also that the I love that there is always the divina, and the how to say, the extraordinary,
the myth as well.
Exactly, that is available. But I also think for myself, I'd like to be somebody who is, we talked about this and I had to think about it yesterday, who do you want to present, but who are you as well? I think I want to be a normal person, and I want to inspire other normal people to do something extraordinary. They don't have to be extraordinary to be extraordinary. They can be normal and do something extraordinary with their lives. I think that's, for me, something nice about it, and that people go and see me in the streets and they say, oh wow, I didn't know you were an opera singer, and they love it. And when they hear something, they get really interested. And I think through relationships and and just telling people and being very enthusiastic about what you do, I think that's just we can't move the world on our own. So
I think something that Pavarotti did, which was amazing, was bring opera to the people. That's the classic quote, isn't it? And something like that is incredible.
If you see yourself 10 years older from now, and if your dreams came true, where would you be?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to see myself freelancing in Europe, singing opera. For myself, I really love to have a balance between contemporary opera, singing and making pieces, creating roles, creating operas with composers, with conductors, with whatnot, bringing contemporary topics to an audience and really get this contemporary opera going. In the Met, actually, contemporary opera is a big thing, and it attracts a lot of people. On the other hand, I think what interests me is
Orlando is not bad either.
No, it's fantastic, and it's Baroque opera is obviously my other, let's say, my other half. And being a complete history geek, I find it dazzling to realize that over centuries' time you can perform music that somebody else has written about a classical time, so 2,000 years ago, 250 years ago, written. We sing it now, and so there is a whole time span, and it just, when you realize what you're looking at, it's just dazzling, and it's very inspiring also for artists to work on it, because there's so many possibilities. So, in short,
Stephanie, if you close your eyes and go
goodness me
to the future.
Well, I always say singing for a living is the dream. Doing something that I love without having to do anything else to survive in this world. That's the dream, to be on stage performing, meeting, working with other people that I've really wanted to work with for a long time, conductors, directors, other singers, and performing internationally in the major opera houses in the world. That's my dream. So I think it's also about balance, isn't it? Because the career is so important, and also I'd love to have a family one day, and I'd love to live at home with my partner, and well, it's also important. So my dream is to find a really healthy balance between the two, and to be able to perform for a living and do something that makes me feel alive and full of joy every day, like I do at the moment in this wonderful Neue Stimmen Masterclass series.
Well, the thing is,
it all starts in Gütersloh.
It all starts in Gütersloh. Let's be honest. Yeah.
I mean, you meet incredible people along the way, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really lovely because you form a sort of mini family, and then you say goodbye, which is always very emotional. But then you end up meeting each other again, a year down the line, or a few years, whatever. So I think it's a really amazing career. It's difficult and there's a lot of rejection, but I think if you can make it work, and you're fortunate to do so, then it's amazing.
It's also a privilege, actually.
It is a huge privilege.
And it's fun. Thank you too.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, this was the long edition of Alles Klar Klassik, the podcast of the Lismon Center of the Bertelsmann Stiftung. Almost live from the Masterclasses in Gütersloh. If you liked our little show, feel free to share it, to talk about it, to debate it, or write us your questions. You can get in contact with us via redaktion@allesklarklassik.de. Next week we will continue then in German again, and of course with Dorothea Greger, who did such a great job in organizing the whole Masterclass week here in Gütersloh. It was lots of work and even more fun. I think this is what singing, what opera, what classical music is all about. All the best. Haltet die Ohren steif. I'm looking forward to next week.